Welcome to the Scared So What podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Grant Van Ulbrich. This is the show where we break through the fear of change and ask the question, scared? So what? Each week we dive into personal change management, coaching, and leadership for the future, giving you real-world tools, insights, and stories to help you lead yourself and others through transformation. Whether you're navigating change in your life, your career, or your organization, this is your space to learn, to grow, and to take bold action. So, are you ready? Let's move from fear to forward. Thanks for tuning in today. This is episode 10 of the Scared So What podcast show. In this episode, we'll focus on leadership, change, and the importance of coaching in a large organization. We're very fortunate to be joined by a very special guest who is the Managing Director of Sales, Marketing, Customer Experience, and Digital at Royal Mail UK. It's time to meet our guest, Mr. Jon Nicholson. Hey, John, how are you today?
I'm very well, Grant. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. It's great to have you. Things going okay for you?
Things are always going okay, Grant. Much to be thankful for as ever.
Exactly. And we've got a bank holiday weekend coming up soon, so that'll be nice and you'll have some time to enjoy, hopefully with your friends and family.
Likewise.
Well, John, listen, it's so nice to have you. Obviously, we've got a good relationship that we've been working together over the years with Scared So What and Royal Mail. But for our listeners, I'd love to let them hear a little bit more about you and what your exciting career experience has been.
Yeah, thanks, Grant. I agree. We're starting to build a really good partnership with Royal Mail and Scared So What, which is really fundamental to what we do. But for me, and really in part why I'm quite passionate about what you do at Scared So What and why coaching is important, is my career started right at the shop floor. I was an agency worker sweeping the floors at TNT Express, which is another logistics company that no longer exists, unfortunately.
I did not know that.
And I was very, very fortunate to find myself then, without knowing it at the time, in a really good company that provided good opportunity and good training. And I managed to work my way up from that position through warehouse worker and driver and then supervisor, operations supervisor, and then found myself in commercial roles as well. And from then, I've been in logistics and parcel delivery for 26 years now, as much as I hate to admit it. And so after I left TNT, I went to work for another company called CityLink, which was really, really exciting at the time. There was a big turnaround opportunity at CityLink, which went really, really well to start with, but then unfortunately, CityLink went bust on Christmas Day about 10.5 years ago. So, well, Christmas Eve formally, but we found out Christmas Day on the news, which was a terrible day for an awful lot of people. As I'm sure they did, I looked at my wife and said, "Oh, I've still got the receipts for those presents. I think we'll take those back."
Exactly. Wow, what a holiday gift.
Yeah, absolutely. And then off the back of that, though, I found myself at Royal Mail, where I started as the head of products for parcels and international, which was brilliant. It turned out to be a really brilliant introduction to the company. Of course, we all know, or in the UK at least, we all know Royal Mail. But actually, when you get under the skin of the organisation, it's a different beast to whatever anybody's perceptions are. Yeah. And that role really helps me understand the business as best I could at that point. And from there, I started to take charge of portions of the sales team. And then that continued to grow. It grew a bit more to then include the Royal Mail and the Parcel Force sales team. So running two brands, which both under the Royal Mail Group, but did run as distinct companies.
Right, because Parcel Force was separate, wasn't it?
It was separate, yeah, absolutely. So as I say, both under the same group, but that's where the link really stopped. There were different operations, different CRM systems, different reward mechanisms. So totally distinct companies offering different product sets to different groups of customers as well. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, some overlap, of course, but primarily we marketed them and controlled them differently. And then that then grew a bit more to include the customer services side and the marketing side of the organisation as well. So and at various points in the journey, I've had bits of those, and they've moved out through restructures and different leadership directions and so on. So the potted history of my career is started sweeping the floor and have managed to nick a living ever since, ably supported by some brilliant leaders and coaches and mentors and friends and colleagues, of course, of which otherwise I probably wasn't facing much of a career if I hadn't have had that support or landed in the right place, if I'm honest.
Well, exactly. But it's such an amazing, colorful career to start from the floor, as you say, sweeping the floor literally, to where you are today. And I'm happy to hear you say that you attribute that back to some great leadership and, coaching and some people who influenced you as well, too. But before I get onto the leadership, something that I always hear in discussions with people, Royal Mail is quite large, is it not? So when people think, when you see the postal service or you see the guy in the truck drive by, that's not what you manage. There's so many different departments. Is that correct?
Oh, yes, it's a huge organisation. It's the second or third biggest employer in the UK.
Really?
140,000 people in the UK. And you're absolutely right, John. There's no doubt about it. The vast majority of those are our operational workforce.
Yeah.
The vast majority of the visibility is, of course, our postmen and women who are out there in all weathers, day in, day out.
Bless them.
They do a phenomenal job. A phenomenal job. And we get the privilege of going out at Christmas time, and we all give a couple of weeks to go and do it. And it's both incredibly hard work and really heartening work, because it's a reminder of what goes on out there and what people are doing literally every day. But of course, it's lots of people think we're the post office.
Yeah.
And we are intrinsically linked, and we used to be the same when we were both owned by the government. Mm-hmm. But we're not. We are two separate organisations as well. So that's the other bit that people often perceive to be where people's perceptions are incorrect. I understand why, but they're incorrect.
Yeah.
But yes, there's a huge function behind it, and to keep the wheels of Royal Mail moving, literally. And we've got big fleet departments, we've got rail, we've got huge legal departments, obviously a big sales and customer service department. I think we've probably got one of the biggest business-to-business databases of any company in the UK. We service 275,000 trading customers, obviously millions of consumers like you or I sending our parcels around to relatives or friends, or because we've sold something on eBay or Vinted or whatever it might be. So it is huge. And of course, it's not just what we do in the UK. We have a company, one of our sister company in Europe and North America is called GLS, which has been a ever-growing company, which started in Germany. It's been part of the Royal Mail Group family for a number of years now. I'm going to say 15, but somebody will fact check that, I'm sure. Maybe 20. And that's an incredibly profitable part of our organisation, but that's our global element as well. But live as we speak, we have just been purchased, so we are now owned by the EP Group, so effectively a private equity firm, which is another big and exciting change for us at Royal Mail. But it means we've gone from public ownership, sort of 13 years ago, to being a private listed company into total private ownership. So that change. They're three big shifts, and for any of us that have worked in public sector or listed or private equity, we know they operate very differently. So
absolutely.
It's a big change that we're going to go through today.
Well, my gosh, I've never met any organization that's gone through so much change as you have, and again, as you articulated, government run to public, now to private sector ownerships as well too. But you're still there. And you're still leading, and you're still growing. And I want to talk about that for a little bit, because that's truly important. I have the honor to know you for a while now, but for my listeners, there's learning here about your leadership. And can you tell our listeners a little bit about what makes Jon's leadership style and what you believe to be important for you and your teams?
Yes, it's hard in many ways, Grant, isn't it? Because I think there's a big portion of leadership. Certainly, look, I've been at leadership now in one way or the other at varying levels for quite a while, and arguably the majority of my career. So back to that early part, I was quite quickly then responsible for people in one form or another. And my leadership style has without a doubt changed as I've learned and as I've matured, and the world has changed around us as well, of course. What we did 20 years ago clearly wouldn't necessarily be acceptable today, let alone appropriate. So that leadership has been, or leadership approach has been a continual journey. I think there's a couple of things that are really important to me, and I'm always mindful that no matter what I think about my leadership style, it will be received in a different way, right? Because
Perception, yeah.
perception is very different, and it's built on snapshot interactions, or there'll be people that I know and get to spend more time with who will understand me better, and I understand them better, who will have a very different perception to those that I don't, who might just see me giving an all hands call address or whatever it might be. Central to my approach is a couple of things. I've been really fortunate to have been lifted up by other people.
Mm.
Earlier in my career, I didn't appreciate that.
Oh, really?
I didn't appreciate it, no, because I had an expectation that if I just work hard, people will notice, and then that'll be all right, and I'll get a promotion, or somebody will come along and just give me more money, or whatever it might be.
Someone else's role to do that for you, right?
Absolutely. And there was definitely a change in my career, helped through some coaches and some mentor, arguably unofficial coaches at the time, and unofficial mentors, just people that were guiding me, where I started to take more accountability, genuine personal accountability for that development, and the way of, and being really purposeful about my career and what I wanted to achieve out of it. I want to play that back. Right, so that concept of when you've found yourself in a position of privilege, which I clearly think I am, it's a real privilege to do my job and hold the position that I've got, is to as best you can try and send the elevator back down.
Yeah.
But I also, when you're not in either a leadership position or you're not in a room where decisions are being made, you can have some really strange perceptions about the conversations or the reasons as to why something's happening.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that's central to me, what I try to do, and won't always get right, but I hope to, is try and explain why we're in a situation we're in. Because that's not necessarily going to make somebody feel that they like it more, but it might at least help them understand it and take some context away. And I always used to feel in my earlier career, and still do sometimes to a degree now, I just wish I knew why we were doing this thing, or why this situation was, or why is this restructure happening, or why have you done this to me and put me in this job, or asked me to do this task. Of course, there's always there is a line, there's a role for being told and deploying and so on, especially across a large population of people, that you can't get away from that. But wherever possible, if you can explain it, that's what I like to try and do.
Well, what I'm hearing from you as well, too, is a hint of vulnerability, a hint of complete authenticity, a hint of empathy as well for your people, because the very fact that you can reflect on yourself and say, it would have been great if I knew why. So therefore, in my leadership practice, I'm going to ensure that in my actions that I deliver, my team knows the why behind that. And that's truly, as you and I've talked on other shows before at Cranfield, that's truly the integration of transformational leadership, which is just a beautiful thing. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that. That's not something you always get out of people in your leadership position and level. I also want to ask, Royal Mail, obviously, this is kind of self-centering for myself, but you guys utilize the Scared So What methodology, and you have for some time. Can you, in your own words, can you share with us why you felt that this was important to introduce to your organization?
Yeah, so we touched on it a moment ago. So Royal Mail, many of your listeners, many people in the UK might have the perception that it doesn't change, and it could not be further from the truth. Yeah. Royal Mail has to change all of the time whilst keeping everything the same. It's a brilliant dichotomy that we have to lead through. And this change of ownership is just another example of that. Right? Our changing landscape, moving from a letters business to a parcels business, is another example of that. Some major changes, and we've been at it for a long time as an organisation. With Scared So what I really bought into, and it's back to that point around vulnerability and understanding, is that change is going to happen anyway. Right, so we are, as leaders, we've got the opportunity to influence some of that change, maybe. But the reality is, the world is changing around us, and there ain't a damn thing we're going to do about it. It's happening. Yeah. And in an organisation where we ask people to change with relative frequency, at all sorts of degrees of change, that will make people feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And despite my desire to try and explain it, that individual still has to go home or sit in their moments of reflection or get through the office going, I'm just being done to here.
Yeah.
I might find I understand it because John or somebody else has told me why, but I've still got to go through it.
Yeah.
And
what's it mean for me? What
does it mean for me? That's right. And the penny dropping moment for me, Ron, in our conversations, our early conversations, was, well, how do we help people at an individual level get through that?
Yeah.
And of course, yes, I'm sure we'll talk about coaching and mentoring and leadership, that one-to-one piece, that support is really important. But certainly many of my leaders, and I'm sure it's the same as well, they've got big teams and big jobs themselves. Yeah. Some of them have got 15 or 20 direct reports because they run sort of contact centres or teams within contact centres, for example. They can't give everybody that one-to-one time to really handhold them through that change. Unfortunately, it'd be lovely if we could, but can't.
Yeah.
And so what I wanted was something that was where the individuals could take personal accountability for helping them through that change in a way that was pertinent to them.
Yeah.
That we can give corporate structure, we can give corporate guidance, we can give guidelines, we can provide programs. But I've got a team of a couple of thousand people. They're 2,000 individuals.
Yeah.
A framework is never going to solve it for everybody, right? So Scared So What is a great way to put that power, that accountability literally in the hands of the individual for a way that suits them. And I think that is really, it's unique, but special.
Well, I love that. And thank you so much for doing that. And obviously we see that your teams are utilizing it and teaching and talking and sharing about it, which is great. But on the back of that, you've also installed a coaching program. And this is really interesting, the power and the numbers of people you put into that. You've put a team that are dedicated to coaching, actually coaching people. Tell us why you believe coaching is so powerful.
So, again, parochially, Grant, I've benefited from it. So having been exposed to professional coaching, formal coaching, when I was first coached, I didn't quite know how to make the best of it. I thought, well, what is this? This feels a bit uncomfortable.
Am I in trouble?
Am I in trouble?
Performance improvement.
Exactly. And fell into the trap of, well, can't you just tell me what to do, please? And so on and so forth. And then, of course, with time and again with experience and as results come, I thought this is quite good. This, and then I became a qualified coach and mentor myself, which helped me become a better coachee actually, because I understood the process from the other side as well. So through getting formally qualified and then doing a lot more coaching and mentoring, I became a better coachee, a better recipient of coaching. Now we've invested, not just me, my predecessor as well, who really kicked it off from Royal Mail from a sales point of view. We've invested in our sales management community quite heavily in coaching, and I would describe them as they are coaching leaders. They adopt a coaching style. We're not aggressive in our leadership. We try and work with the people rather than just the metrics. But the reality is, we're also a sales organisation.
Yeah.
And what I was asking those managers to do was manage performance and be a coach. And so therefore they end up doing a bit of a mix of those two things, and probably neither perfectly. And that's not a criticism of any of them, because they're all brilliant, well-meaning people, but they have too much to do, big numbers and big teams to manage. So all of the performance pressure. And then I'm saying to them, and can you coach your people as well?
Yeah.
And then I look at me and go, come on, we can't. Which bit would you like us to focus on? We can't do
Is it coaching? Is it performance? Is it what? Where do we go? Yeah,
absolutely. And then there was always going to be a conflict. So if you've got an underperformer, and we do have underperformers in sales organisations, of course we do. What am I going to do? Am I managing the performance, or am I spending the time coaching them and working through their challenges in a different way?
Yeah.
So what I wanted to introduce was I didn't want to lose our coaching style of management, but I wanted to bolster the pure coaching opportunity, which allows then the sales managers to identify the people who might be off performance, but not because of the metrics or so on, because there's something else at play. Or, and arguably more importantly, I wanted to focus at the middle to high performers and what else could we unlock in them. And I've said this before, Grant, I'm not always a fan of sporting analogies in business. I don't think, I get why, but it doesn't always translate. But in this context, it really works, which is if I am a top class goalkeeper, I still work with a performance coach every day to improve my performance. And that is the analogy that I wanted here. I'm a top class account director or salesperson or key account manager, whatever it might be. Or who can I work with to improve that even further?
Yeah.
And that's the resource I wanted to provide.
Well, and you're so right. You're so right. So many people, I've seen this in organizations, and the leaders, they'll look at their superstar players and they'll say, oh, they don't need my help. And they're fine. Just let them go. But there's a personal side to that as well. The pressures, there's a change and a pressure that you just put on that person. You no longer need my love, my attention, my respect, my guidance, my support. But that's where they can start to fall to the wayside. So you don't want to lose that momentum. Just because somebody's doing super stellar doesn't mean you let go of them. And I love how you recognize that.
Well, and the other thing is, and again, back to the changing environment. So we had people that were selling when we had a monopoly, and now we're asking them to work in the hyper-competitive e-commerce market. Totally different sectors, totally different environments, totally different commercial propositions, different competitive landscapes, but the person's the same.
Yeah.
So they might have been a superstar in the old environment, but we put them through an awful lot of change, and are they still a superstar? Well, of course they are, still the same person, but there might be something else we've got to unlock to get them back to a superstar in that new context. So I think that's it, and that's why it's important. But we also can't avoid the fact that people are still a bit suspicious of it, and are still a bit suspicious of it. Our coaches are brilliant; they are first class, and we built a mix of internal people and external people, and that blend has been magic. And the team led by Michelle Latimer, who I know you know is really.
I'm glad you said her name, because I was going to ask if I could give a shout out. Michelle is just superior. Yeah,
she's brilliant. But all of the coaches are underneath her as well. They're really committed to this journey. Yeah. But they've met some resistance. So from some of the sales leaders kind of going, oh, are you now managing this person? And it's like, no, we want to coach them. But I was really definite that the work, if we allocated you to one of the coaches, yes, there might be a three-way agreement up front that says these are some of the areas from the manager I would like Grant to focus on. But after that, they are confidential. The coach is not reporting back to the manager.
Yeah.
I really wanted to make sure there was that separation so the coachee could say, actually, my problem is my manager. Can we work on that, please?
Can we have a real conversation? Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. Yeah. And, you took it a step further. Your coaches actually became certified in the Scared So What as instructors. Yes. So we took them through to that so that they could actually learn that skill set of, even when I'm coaching somebody, I have to recognize that this is a personal change as well, too. Yeah. So how's their personal feelings going to be incorporated? How do I get them through to a decision and then to be able to make their own so what action plan for themselves? So
yeah. And we know, don't we, Grant, of course, that one of the tenets of that coaching or being a coachee is keeping to your commitments. And again, the Scared So What process helps people do that. And that's why I wanted the coaches to be really familiar with it, because let's use it for that.
Absolutely. And now with the Pro App dashboards, we can actually see change live as it happens. So your coaches actually have an instant action report to see, is something working? Well, this is great. And so I think in all of this, you've obviously articulated the importance of personal change and leadership and development at work. Whose responsibility is it to drive all of that?
I'm a big believer in personal accountability, Grant. Many of it, certainly for Royal Mail, we provide a lot of opportunity for people for their own personal development. Some of it will be forced, controlled, driven, but much of it still requires people to, if not put their hand up, at least commit when they're into it, right?
Yeah.
And so I believe leadership's role is to provide the environment and the opportunity, and to encourage and recommend, and in some cases force it, but that's not my preferred approach. But it is, for me, it's the accountability of the individual. We are all responsible for our own lives, and we know ourselves better than anybody else does. So we know what we need. We know what our own gaps are. We might not want to admit them.
Yeah, true.
But we do, if we're really honest with ourselves.
Well, and you just demonstrated and you've shown us a little insight into who you are and to your culture at Royal Mail. And I just really want to thank you because, also in listening to you, you're not somebody who just tells people what to do. You actually go through it yourself, and you've walked the mile in their shoes, and you've actually learned it by becoming your own accredited coach as well, too. It's not something you're just telling people that you want them to do. You're actually doing it for yourself. Jon, this is so amazing. We're at the end of our session for today, but I do have one question I ask each and everyone to close us out. What is one thing of advice you'd like to give out to people about change, coaching, leadership, or just life?
Well, I'm not sure it's for me to give life advice, Grant, to anybody, but the one piece of advice is difficult to give. The biggest lesson and change for me, and it's a bit of a theme, was being honest with myself about what I needed to do to achieve what I wanted to achieve, and that I was arguably the biggest blocker in my own progress.
Interesting.
And once I realised the world wasn't against me and I was getting in my own way, it made a massive, massive difference. And I have the privilege of working with many, many people and having many, many conversations. But I recognise that self-destructive mindset, that's a bit of a strong word, but that mindset that's holding them back more often than I would like to. And it always feels a shame. So, we're always looking somewhere else for the answers. The answers are always right in front of you, they're right inside.
Sometimes just look in the mirror, right?
I think so, but it's hard to do. Easy to say, hard to do.
So wonderful. Well, listen, thank you so much. It's a joy to have you on the show. You're just stellar. And for any of you listen, if you'd like to follow along with Jon at Royal Mail, please follow on his LinkedIn. I'll provide that link in the bio section of this episode. Jon, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Grant. Pleasure to be here.
I'll see you soon.
Take care.
Thanks for joining us here on the Scared So What podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Grant Van Ulbrich. If you found any of this information insightful, well, give us a like and follow along. Make sure that you tune in each week for more episodes as we talk further about what is personal change, how do you manage it with Scared So what about coaching, and also leadership, and how all three of these tie together. If you'd like to learn more, then go to our website at www.scaredsowhat.com. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope that you come back soon.